Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. This is a recent reads as we're in March, and my March of the Mammoths is 956 pages of William Gaddis's The Recognitions. I've not finished too much this week, but I have finished a couple of things. The first is a novel, The Octopus Man by Jasper Gibson, and the second is non-fiction, Dub in Babylon by Christopher Partridge. So I'm going to talk about The Octopus Man, which is a book about a character with schizophrenia, which is often very hard to do in literature, to apply words to strange mental states and sort of perceptions of reality, because too often it's easy to veer over into the literariness and the sort of stylized and metaphorical when trying to sort of portray these sort of strange states. And this book absolutely avoids that. It reads totally authentic as what the experience of having schizophrenia might be like. But it does more than that. It sort of looks at the sort of social context of schizophrenia and how we in society sort of regard it. So on the one hand, he ascribes a possible partial responsibility to the character, because when he was a youth he took prodigious amounts of drugs which may have altered his brain chemistry, thus precipitating schizophrenia, or that when he was sort of hallucinating, something sort of broke in his sort of perceptual apparatus, and he was never able to get back to normality. And again, that you know, he sort of brought it on himself. Now, it's not saying that you know, everyone who has schizophrenia or other mental illnesses bring it on themselves, because he was taking these drugs with other people and none of them succumbed. But it suggests that unknowingly he had a disposition towards it, be it genetic or whatever. And in these circumstances, that you know, there's a distinct possibility that that disposition was exacerbated by his use of drugs. But then it looks at society's role in this, and it makes a sort of fascinating argument. The reason it's called The Octopus Man is because this character with schizophrenia, first of all, he's not a threat to anybody else in society other than possibly himself. And the reason is because the nature of his particular delusion is that he believes that there is this divinity in the shape of an octopus god, and that this octopus god is his mentor and spiritual guide to train him to be a good person in the world and to do good deeds to others. And that the sort of the electric shocks that he feels, the sort of the blackouts and sort of fainting and sort of being generally overpowered physically, are the punishments and the inducements that the octopus god uses when, you know, he's you know, gone off course. So he's not allowed to drink, he's not allowed to have sex. So again, this sort of notion of a sort of a spirit guide, you know, a spiritual journey that he sees himself on, which is why he doesn't see that he needs to be cured. He recognises that he thinks and approaches life differently from other people, but he sees it's all for a good reason. So that when he's offered a trial of a new drug, he absolutely steadfastly refuses to go on this trial, because he wants to stay on his path. He believes that it is the right path for him. And this is something that you can see in several people, including artists, where, you know, often they're told, you know, you should go to therapy or whatever, and the artist sort of says, oh no, because if the therapist cures me, I might not be able to produce my art anymore. It's an art born of sort of neurosis and anxiety and all this sort of stuff. So it's a very common and also interesting mechanism that it's explored here. And, you know, without any spoilers, the last scene set up in here is extraordinary. It's a wonderful scene. I will say the punchline payoff, the last line of the scene, is a little doesn't quite live up to the setup that he's produced. But what an ending. And the other part of society's role in this is it looks at his sister, who is basically his main carer, and just how it sort of wears her out and drives her down. It's so difficult for her to cope when she has her own life and family and job and stuff, and her brother, who you know, is so unpredictable. She doesn't know when she's next going to get the phone call to come and pick him up or commit him or whatever it is. And just, it's so difficult for her. And I thought that was really well done. And it's interesting that when he's institutionalised, he's in there with a young woman who, because she doesn't have a carer, she doesn't have the equivalent of his sister, that she's in there because she has grand mal epilepsy. You know, she sort of has these sort of quite dangerous to her sort of fits. But she's not mentally ill. She has this brain condition of grand mal epilepsy, but she's not ill. She's not mentally disturbed. But because she has no carer, no one who could look after her on the outside, no family, she's just put in this institution as the best way society sees of dealing with her. And it just, you know, she's completely cut off from, you know, all the good things in life that could give her hope. So this is just such, you know, when I saw this, Eric Carl Anderson hauled this, and when he mentioned schizophrenia, that immediately got my interest. And then when it arrived, I've sort of lost a little bit of sort of enthusiasm for it. I don't know really why. And when I picked it up and read it, I wondered what this was going to be like. But actually, it more than surpassed my expectations. And I give this 5 stars. If you're interested in mental illness, this is an absolute read. And I think, you know, while I don't think Jasper Gibson has experienced it firsthand, so in the back there's an author's note where he goes, "My cousin Ed Metcalfe died in 2011 at the age of 40, having suffered with a schizophrenia diagnosis for 20 years. This book was inspired by his death and is dedicated to his life." So I can only assume that Gibson was very close to this cousin, because the amount of information and first-hand sort of observation is absolutely replicated here. You know, it's a deeply researched, not in an academic way, but in a personal way, and that comes through. This is really good. And on to Dub in Babylon. Now, in my last roundup, I reviewed Michael Veal's Dub, so I'm not going to say too much about Dub in Babylon, other than between the two, I think you have a fantastic overview of dub reggae. Christopher Partridge is an academic, and it's a slightly more academic treatment than this, in the sense that you get whole paragraphs of which half are taken up with, you know, citations of author, the year of publication and stuff, which I found got in the way, because your eye loses its sort of train of place as you're sort of, you know, I don't need to know all these names and the years of their publications, and if I did, they're all listed in the back. So I found that sort of got in the way, but, you know, that is just the way of academic publishing. And as an academic, he takes great glee in criticising Veal for a couple of mistakes that Partridge spotted. But anyway, that aside, didn't really spoil my enjoyment of either book. And I will say that Partridge's sort of overview and introduction to sort of the society and culture of Jamaica and its sort of pre-independence but also post-independence history really gave a great context for reggae and dub, much more than Veal's, which I thought was a little confused and sketchy. But this is very much about the dub experience in Britain, where sort of Jamaican dub was exported to Britain and went its own way, and is very good on the links between the link up between reggae, dub and punk rock, and then post-punk sort of experimental music. So, you know, both 5 stars. If you're interested in the subject, I think they make good companions. So that is it. As I say, I'm playing on with the recognitions in a group read with Dennis at Intelligent Reads and Noah at Everyone Who Reads Must Converse. We're doing that throughout the month of March at 200 pages a week. We've had our first sort of week's check-in and had a very stimulating conversation because the book invites it. But what it does mean is I'm unlikely to be making a video next week on any reads, because next week is solely on the recognitions, because I have next week off leave from work, which I'm doing some new writing, and it is writing a experimental piece, which is why I was reading these 2 books on dub, because hopefully if I pull it off, it will involve the sort of dub techniques in sound. It will be a sort of literary equivalent. Okay, so till next time, thanks very much.